Now then, I'm beginning to sound a bit like Time Team. We have just got 3 hours to get to our campsite before it's dark. So let's go. So I'm back in Edale and we are going to go up onto Kinder. And I say we because I'm just waiting for Steve to arrive. He's meeting me at the phone box. I'm going to talk today about the aircraft wrecks on Kinder. And I've got a couple of interesting bits about that, which are nothing to do with the aircraft. Originally, I was going to walk through here and go straight up the side of Broadley Tor, which is extremely steep. But there is an aircraft wreck on Broadley Tor on the side of it, which I'm going to tell you about in a second. And there's also another one just as you get onto Broadley Tor. Very, very different wreck. And I intended to cross into the middle of Kinder. There's 2 more wrecks I wanted to find, and then walk across to the middle and pitch there for the night. And in the morning, possibly find another couple of wrecks. But I got my script idea and I put it into Google to finish some of the details of it off. And it said to me, this is extremely dangerous. In fact, it said several times. I'm not quite sure it said you will die if you do this, but it came very close. It's dangerous climbing at Broadley Tor in this wet weather. It's dangerous going across the marshy moor that's very waterlogged. The wrecks I'm trying to find are more than likely underwater. And very high wind overnight, I'm likely to get my tent damaged. And then in the morning, after the weather we're going to have tonight, probably won't be able to get back down safely. So it recommended instead that I camp at Fieldhead in Edale. Well, I'm a wild camper. I'm not a camper, only in rare circumstances. So that was out of the question. So as you go up the side of Broadley Tor, if you're going up Grinslow Knoll, there's a little forest to the left of the first field that you walk through. And in 1983, a Cessna aircraft crashed there. Now the circumstances of that crash are quite interesting, so I'm going to discuss it because you have to really understand why are there so many aircraft wrecks. Now that one was a training flight. There was an instructor and his student, and as you have to do, especially in 1983, you have to plot your route and submit it to air traffic control, and they will monitor you. And they advised this flight that it was well off course. The wind had blown it off course. There was no GPS then. Blown it off course, and they took over navigation of the aircraft and they were directing it. And they directed it out of the wind and to fly up the Edale Vale, which obviously is lower down and it won't be getting the wind. That led to a problem, a fatal problem, because as it started to fly up the valley, the wind coming off Kinder follows Kinder down that very, very steep embankment of Broadley Tor. And there was a 2,000 foot per minute wind coming down, straight down, from the top of Kinder. And this little aircraft was at 3,000 feet and it was being plunged downwards, doing its best to stay up, going as fast as it could, but it was only managing to lose height at 1,000 feet per minute. Now you don't have long if you're a little aircraft before that becomes, there's no more airspace. So they reported back to air traffic control, mayday, we've got a problem here. And air traffic control said, you take over the control of your craft and fly where it's safe. The pilot, the instructor had taken over, slowed down as much as possible. And basically what they did, they landed on that 45-degree slope on Broadley Tor. Landed, of course, you can't land a plane on a 45-degree slope. It broke in 3. But it was a very low speed landing and both people were unhurt. They were unhurt until they undid their seatbelts, and when they undid the seatbelts they both fell out and cut their heads. But they survived to tell the tale. Sadly, many of the aircraft wrecks on Kinder, that doesn't happen. So as I'm walking up, I'll go through another one and then explain the big problem we have with Kinder and why there are so many wrecks on there. Anyway, I'll see if Steve's here. I'm going to go and have a look. Speak soon. Oh. Oh, you're adorable. Hello.
Hello.
Lovely weather.
Oh,
Are you going far?
Possibly to the top.
Because we went to Kinderlow and it's
it's horrific.
We've been told the wind's awful, yeah. Any snow?
yeah.
Yes.
And then you get the aircraft wrecks which don't result in people walking away. And I have to say that's the majority of the aircraft wrecks on Kinder. I'll put a list on the screen now of the wrecks which are actually there. Just below Woolpacks is a Harvard 2B, and it's one of the most intact aircraft wrecks up there. There is a plaque and there's quite a lot of the aircraft left, but not many people visit it. And in 1952, again a training navigation exercise, the pilot was well off course. In 1952 there was no radar assistance from air traffic control because there was no air traffic control and there was no GPS, you know. You flew by looking at what was below you. So the pilot descended to see if he could spot anything he saw from, you know, he could recognise from the map. And sadly, he descended right into the ground. Killed instantly. The air traffic, not the air traffic control, start again. The RAF knew he'd gone missing, so they instigated a search. And the next morning they found the aircraft in very thick snow, as you often get in January up on there. Just mentioning it, it is illegal to move any parts or interfere with an aircraft wreck at all, even if it's not a military one and even if it hasn't resulted in any death. So please don't be tempted to take any souvenirs, which I know, of course, you lot won't, but spread the message. Sermon over. Steve and I have just been talking. We think we're going to go to my plan C. We've bumped into a couple of people saying the weather is dire up there. And there is a bit of snow, but the wind is extremely high. And according to the forecast, it's going to get higher. And you can't see anything looking at the top, so.
You can have first choice. You can go there if you want.
Well, you've got the big one, haven't you? You've got to fit yours in.
I could get mine just here.
One there then.
Is that enough for you just there?
Well, I'll go here, look.
Yeah, is that enough?
Yeah, I can make that level, yeah. Talk about an amateur. I laid the tent out, turned round, wind caught it, twisted it all. I couldn't work out how I'd twisted the ground sheet with the tent, so I ended up having to detach the two of them, put the ground sheet down separately, and then do the tent. And then I put the poles in wrong. They're meant to cross on the end that hasn't got the cross pole, and I crossed them on the other end. So, phew, what an amateur! Time now to get that bag in there. It's forecast to be like it right through the night, in fact to get heavier. Well, I'm glad we decided to pitch here. It's just hovering on freezing outside. The wind's really strong. Steve were just saying we ought to both go out really and tighten the guy lines, but I don't know. It's pretty solid at the moment. I am pitched a little bit cockeyed, and this side is blowing in a bit, but it's going to be all right. I've just moved my bag and put it underneath my sleep mat on this side just to prop my feet up to stop me rolling that way. I brought my Cedar Summit air chair. I mean, it don't really work with this thick mattress, so yeah, I'll be using that. So why do we get all these aircraft wrecks on Kinder Scout especially? Well, it's like everything else on Kinder Scout, isn't it? It's the geology. It's a dirty, great big lump of rock that sticks up out of nowhere. So if planes are off course, then they're not expecting there to be a 2,000 foot, and they're not expecting a 2,000 foot mountain to be rearing up from the 800 foot valley floor. And it's and it's not a gradual rise, it's just a very sharp, most of the bits around Kinder are very sharp rises. And of course, modern aircraft don't really crash into it because we're in a different regime now. We've got GPS and we've got, a very sophisticated air traffic control, which would be in constant communication with the planes. So you're not going to get crashes now. The 1983 was the last one, and that's Cessna. You're not going to get any more since before that. So hopefully that era of all those aircraft wrecks is over. A plane would make a flight plan and it will say, I'm going to fly at, for example, 100 miles an hour in an easterly direction. And they know that if they fly at 100 miles an hour in an easterly direction, they're going to be obviously 100 miles away. And they can plot that on a map and work out where they're going to be. But it's not that simple because they can't measure that they're doing 100 miles an hour. They can only measure their airspeed is 100 miles an hour. If, for example, the wind was blowing towards them at 50 miles an hour, then they'd be registering that they were doing 100, but they would actually only be doing 50. So they'd be 50 miles out of the location they're at. And obviously it gets more complicated if there's a crosswind blowing them sideways. So that the navigation skills was very much an art form then, and they used to get it wrong. Nowadays that wouldn't happen because you've got your GPS, which gives you a pinpoint location, then you would fly along and you would assume you were in a certain place, and you'd be looking down and you're saying, oh, there's that river there, and that river's just crossed that road, and there's a church by the side of it, and I know from my chart that's the location there. So you'd reset your location. So right, I'm there now at this time. My airspeed is this, I'm doing this direction, this is where I'm going to be. That's okay. But at night time, you can't see, and at in poor weather conditions you can't see, and that's when these accidents occurred. The Wellington that crashed at Upper Tor on Grinsbrook is a good case in point. They'd been on a bombing raid, weren't able to drop the bombs, flew back, and they didn't think they were anywhere near Kinder Scout. They descended out of the cloud to see what was there, and flew straight into the side of Upper Tor. Full bomb load, of course. The plane blew up immediately, smashed the back of the plane off where the rear gunner was, and that section rolled down the hill and ended up at the bottom of Grinsbrook, and that guy survived. The rest of the crew were killed. So that's another example, and you can go through all of them. Very few resulted in people actually living. You'd almost got to land the aircraft to survive, because they're usually high speed. They're usually high speed and sudden stops, which doesn't go very well on the body. Okay. Just a quick update. I'm actually sat here with no lights on at the moment, and you can see from the video it's quite acceptable on this DJI Action 6. I was filming with my DJI Action 5, the cooking, and that was on night mode. And again, it's quite acceptable. I will need to put some light on soon. I've got my head torch I'm going to use. I've got another head torch I can use. I'm fated in this for lanterns. I was using the Max Pump 3 as a lantern, but I just got sick of it cutting out. It blew my air mat up, and then 4 hours it would cut out. Well, you need it on for a lot longer than 4 hours at this time of year. And that blooming OEX, which I'm going to have to take it back and tell them about, is annoying. Not OEX, it's Nemo from Go Outdoors. It's not OEX. There is another model come out from that that's almost twice as expensive. So I might have to... I'm going to gas them for money back, I think. Very annoying. All right, I've got myself a tea and a coffee. Dinner tonight, I am having... aromatic vegetable biryani, and I've got myself some ambrosia custard and a sticky toffee pudding, which I'll be boiling and having them later, and that's why I bought my small bowl. But there's nothing special about cooking them, and just going to do them on my alcohol stove. Not hungry yet, so I'll leave that till later on, because it's a long night. Time is now just 5 o'clock. We haven't got very long, I don't think, until we go dark. I keep putting my phone down. I'll put it in a very sensible place there in my watch pocket. How long have we got? Sunset is 16:58 and it's 17:04, so we're just after sunset. Dusk is 17:36. So we're very rapidly going to lose light now. I've just heard sleet on the tent again. In fact, there were big chunks of snow. Yeah, it's pretty grim out there. I'll not be opening the tent outer. I'd got a guy line, an extra guy line, and my idea was to stretch it out and just open at one corner. I've got a shepherd's hook peg just here, one of this style, and I've just pegged the side of the bathtub down just to keep it a bit below the flame height. But there's ample room to cook in here, and as you saw from last week measuring the carbon monoxide, it's not going to be a problem. So I'll speak again later. So oh, that's nice. Boiling. My custard. I'm just going to swap the custard for the treacle pudding. And custard. Oh, this will warm me up. Is it warm enough? Oh. That is
Pitched it down all night, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. So much for that heavy snow.
Yeah. I measured 35 miles an hour on one of them gusts.
35?
Yeah.
There we go. Drink up and get a brew on.
And good morning. It's rained all night. Absolutely solid. The snow's all gone. even just looking up to the tops. Very windy. It was 35-mile-an-hour gust I measured at one point, and that wasn't the heaviest gust. It just bobbed below zero. It's about 2 degrees now. Positively tropical. Whilst I'm waiting for my water to boil, I'm going to tell you a story about the hallucinations of Google. When I plan my videos, I have an idea for what I'm going to do, and I was going to do the aircraft wrecks, and I'd sort of picked a route, and I knew which wrecks I was going to visit. So I just write out a rough plan and send it to Google Gemini and say, can you just check this script? Is there anything I can add to it? Can you suggest some ways I can present some of it? And sometimes you get some good feedback from it, and often you get little ideas which are useful. And Google said to me, if you leave the car park at that time on that day, it is very high risk. I think it fell short of saying you're going to die, but it said many times this is high risk. I was going to climb at Broadley Tor, and it said this is a very high risk strategy. It's very, very slippery, extremely dangerous. We suggest you get a different route. The first wreck, it said this wreck is probably underwater, under very boggy ground, and it'll be extremely misty. You won't be able to find it. I had GPS coordinates, and I know exactly where it is, but that's beside the point. And then the same with the other two wrecks. It said these are in very boggy ground. It's been raining for days. You won't be able to find them. It's very misty. I said I was going to drop my bag in the tent and then go find those two wrecks. And it said this is a very risky strategy. You might not be able to get back to your tent, and you'll be stuck there without your equipment. And so it went on. It said at the end, it said we recommend that you camp at Fieldhead campsite, and don't do this hike. So I thought, well, okay, I take on board your advice, but I'm a wild camper and I want to go find those wrecks. Yeah, it was quite funny. So my second plan was Stephen suggested we go up to Red Brook. So I typed that in, and it said this is much better. He said you can adapt this to your script because there is an aircraft wreck, and it told me about an aircraft wreck in the valley, one I haven't mentioned on Russia Edge side. And it said, and when you get to Red Brook, there is a aircraft wreck right where you are camping. And it gave me the details of it, and I thought, oh, that's fantastic. And if you look down at Mermaid's Pool, there is an intact Spitfire buried in the moor there that nosedived into the moor. I thought, oh, this is brilliant. This will fit in really, really well. And when I came to revise it, I thought, right, I need some details of these wrecks, and I said, I think it was called Miles Millie, the wreck at Red Brook. I said, give me some more details about the Miles Millie wreck at Red Brook. And it said, I'm very sorry, I made a mistake. There isn't that wreck there at all. I've conflated it with another wreck on a moor about 20 miles away. I thought, oh heck, I better check the Spitfire one. Well, the Spitfire one was such a good story. This experienced pilot had been doing a routine recce around the area in the middle of the war. His engine had failed, he'd bailed out, he lived, and the aircraft had nosedived straight into the moor, and it's buried 15 feet deep. Now that actually happened, but not at Mermaid's Pool. So, and then I said, tell me how many aircraft wrecks there are on Kinder Scout. And after a couple of minutes came back and said 150. I thought, that's rubbish, that's not Kinder Scout, that's the Peak District. So I said, can you double check that fact and can you give me a list? It said, oh yes, we have made a mistake, there are 30. No list though. And I said, right, give me a list. So it said, can't find details of some of them, but here are 15 wrecks. 18 wrecks. Now, I know a lot of them because I've either visited them or I've read of them. They're not 15. I thought, wow, this is fantastic. And I just thought, I better double check. I said, can you just double check this list, please? And it said, it would appear I've added some on there which don't exactly exist. Here is the list of 9 wrecks, and it gave me the 9 wrecks which I do know about, the locations and the circumstances. So eventually it got there, and it just goes to show you cannot trust the computer. And I checked it against Dan Cunningham's excellent book, Aircraft Wrecks in the Peak District, which I'm lucky enough to have a copy of. And they are in the book. So yeah, incredible. They call it hallucination when AI does that kind of thing. Right, so the plan is I've got my porridge, which I put in my cup, and I know when I fill the cup with water, that's just enough water for it. I've got my coffee, I've had my tablets, I've brushed my teeth, as you've just seen probably. And then it's just pack up steadily. Looks like the water's coming to the boil. It was in this morning, excuse me. It's not bad down, it takes 3 puffs to boil, so you know. I had a good natter with Steve last night. We got into very geeky conversations about alcohol stoves and how we tweak our setup and how we arrive at what we've got. And I think basically we both have been an hour on the same journey of refining. Steve keeps telling me that gas isn't the way to go because gas is gay. Which always makes me laugh when he says it.
I'm going to sum up here. We're packed up. I'm just waiting for Steve to finish putting his tent away. Brilliant camp. Good company. You know, Steve's always a good laugh. Had a real good natter last night. Very geeky talk about all the camping stuff. The plan we had, well, my original plan, which, you know, I'd already switched to plan B, and then to get up onto Red Brook, it would have been awful up there last night. There were 35-mile-an-hour gusts during the night down here. It's rained all night. Temperature got down to 0 about midnight, and then gradually it's risen to 2 degrees this morning. So that's not, you know, it's not, you can survive in those temperatures, but it's no fun. And you can see nearly all the snow is gone now from the tops. Yeah, so really appreciate it if you made it through to this part in the video. Love to read your comments and tell everyone about the channel, like and subscribe and all that good stuff, which I know you're doing, so thank you. So, Steve,
Hey,
thank you, mate. Another
cracking camp, mate.
brilliant camp,
Brilliant,
fantastic.
Yeah, what a good camp.
Fantastic, best camp ever.
Aye, best camp in the world, aye. Well, thanks very much for the lift, mate, and I've enjoyed your company once again.
Alright, well, brilliant, Steve. Thank you so much as well. It's been. I'm glad we switched to Plan C.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't go up there
Yeah,
last night.
it was dire up there.
It was
Yeah,
horrendous.
yeah.
The wind was bad enough where we were, weren't it?
Yeah. So twice in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I probably won't see you next week, but
No, but we'll stay in touch.
yeah, fantastic.
Right, well, safe journey home, mate,
Thank you.
and I'll see you again.